Hello, my name is Joy Jenkins, and I'm a counselor at Tascosa High School in Amarillo, Texas. I've chosen to complete my leading video by developing an agenda and leading a couple of faculty meetings. I also spent time after these meetings to elicit feedback from the staff regarding my use of their time, communication skills, collaboration, listening skills, and topic relevance. And my faculty meetings are both testing trainings of sorts. The first one is a STAR training that I did for all of our faculty. It was an after-school training. And then the second video that I did is a PSAT training for our counselors. They kind of have a special role in PSAT, so I did theirs separate from the rest of the faculty. And I also followed that training with a TSI informational meeting. I have led these meetings many times in the past, but I've really worked hard at honing my skills and making them effective and in making sure that I'm doing well in the previously mentioned areas.
You lose your license, they suspend it, they might put a little note on your license saying this person did it. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but that's what the inscribing thing is talking about. Of course, if you see anything or if you think something has happened in your class, a lot of stuff that happens is not serious. It's called procedural, and it's a little report for us, but we would rather get it fixed than not know it all. Like cell phones, for example. You know how they love to turn into cell phones? And then you always catch that one kid who has it. That would be a procedural irregularity. Okay, you just notify us, we get it all taken care of. You don't have to do any investigating and do all that. With the exception of anybody who's reading a test aloud, you will only get one set of test materials for each student. So one test book, one answer document. I don't think we use the demonstration answer document or anything. If you're reading a test aloud, there will be an additional test manual in there for you to use, so that you're not standing over a kid's shoulder. And that says no extra test booklets, but I just want you to remind you. We will give you all your materials, just like we normally do. In those bags, your cell phone dots, your number 2 pencils, your erasers, anything that we can think of that you might possibly need, we'll provide that for you. There is a dictionary policy. Every student taking the English 1 and 2 will get a dictionary. Our ELL students, they get bilingual dictionaries for not just their English 1 and English 2, they get it for all of their tests. But we will be sure and put that on your test roster. If you have a student that has accommodations, we will put an accommodations roster in there as well, so you know. Bracket calculators for math, and also you'll get 1 for every 5 for biology. And honestly, we're going to have to figure out a way to get 1 per student for algebra, and algebra is so close to biology that I foresee us having 1 per kid for biology as well, because we will already have them. We'll already have them tomorrow. As always, you'll check out and in from us in the conference room. Each day you'll initial out, we will initial you in. And before you initial out, you have to count, make sure everything is there. Give yourself enough time, if possible in the morning. I know test days, people get flustered, you're nervous, you don't want to mess up, because you can take your license and go to jail. So give yourself enough time to get there and really count through things. And we're there talking in your ear saying, we should have this, and this. And meanwhile, somebody's talking in our ear saying, so it says this, you're not supposed to test. And so we're checking that. It's chaos in there. So give yourself enough time to get things checked out and make sure that you really got what you're supposed to have. And then, like I said earlier, when we get in, we'll count before we let you leave, and then we'll initial you in. So during the test, in fact, preparing for the test, your room should be quiet, well lit, ventilated. Well, that's not possible with ours, is it? Because our windows don't open. Just overall comfortable. You should have all bulletin boards covered. If you're giving a test in someone else's room, we will alert them and let them know that they need to cover. If you go in that morning and stuff is not covered, let us know and we'll help get that covered. We'll send somebody, some people. You'll have your testing do not disturb sign, just like we always do. You'll have your red, it's red testing, yellow is help, and then green is finished. So you'll have all of those. We talked about the training test administrator, and then just enough space for the kids to work. We never run into this. We never have more than 30 per one, because that's a lot of books to count. Before I go on to this one, when we test in the library, and we do almost every test administration, there's going to be more online testing this year than there ever has been, because that new Star Alt that I was talking about is completely online. So we will have kids taking Star L for ESL in the library. We might have kids in the library taking Star Alt for special ed accommodations. And that's great, except I've noticed since I've been here that people don't really heed that red testing do not disturb sign on the door to the library.
Or the stop sign. Or the great big gigantic stop sign.
And I wish I was talking about the kids who are checking out books, but I'm really not. I mean, we print stuff in there, we go and get on the computer, we're looking at newspapers, having conversations with our teacher friends. It gets really loud in there. So we're going to really crack down on the amount of traffic that's going into the library during testing. I mean, we're talking about seniors, and really more seniors with STAR than you've ever had with TAKS. This is their last chance. They don't get another chance after this to pass before graduation. And regardless, if you think about it, you going in and printing something or using the computer is the equivalent of someone coming into your room while you're testing and doing the same. It's very disruptive. Headphones are not. I mean, those kids might get to use. So please be mindful and go somewhere else on those days. We don't really run into this one for STAR, especially since they're all in separate books. But make sure when you're checking out the material, especially when we get to the beginning of May and we have algebra one day, biology the next day, and U.S. history, that you've got the books that you're supposed to have. We're very careful, but things happen, and like I said, that room gets to be chaos sometimes, so just help us in checking. Okay, so the students are allowed to make notes and work in the test booklet or on scratch paper. If they use scratch paper, we have to shred it. Don't let them put it back in the book. If you're not comfortable with shredding it yourself, you can make us an extra pile. We have a shred box in there. We'll just throw it in there and make sure it gets shredded for you. Make sure they're staying on task. Remind them periodically to record their answers on their answer document. And we don't run into this with STAR. They have one test section per test, so I don't know how they would be working on a raw test section. They're not allowed to talk. They're not allowed to wander around the room. Nothing distracting. When it gets closer to time for the actual tests, we'll come in to your PLCs and we'll have another one of these, much shorter, I promise. And we'll talk about the logistics of testing, like who's testing, who's getting breaks, who's responsible for covering classes, because we have 60 teachers testing and only 5 subs. So there is a huge possibility that some of you during your conference or PLC period on those testing days will be covering classes. But we'll get with you. For returning test materials, of course, just like always, we want answer documents separate from the test booklet. This just helps in accounting for your materials. It makes it go faster for us to count you in and get you on to where you need to be. One thing I want to bring up here is on the math, the algebra and the biology. You know, they have those tear out pages now instead of the formula charts. They don't have to tear those out. We would encourage them to tear them out, because if they don't tear them out, they're not using them. And I don't know how you answer the measuring questions without the ruler on those pages. If they tear it out, they can write on it, that is fine. It cannot go back in the book. We spent a lot of time in December on algebra and biology in the conference room going through and pulling out all of those pages. We get in big trouble when we turn those in. We don't like to get yelled at, so we're asking y'all to please make a separate stack of those when you turn that in. It's considered the scratch paper that we have to shred. You can have them erase stray marks, check that everything is accounted for. We're going to alphabetize answer documents. We're going to put test booklets in number order. At this point, let's see, May 30th, how many do we have testing? March, yeah. We have over 600. It would be a lot easier for us if they came in order than it would be to try to put all 600 in order in the afternoon. Okay, so that is it. I'm really trying to hurry. Sorry, it's not very much fun. Okay, for you super high achievers who are already filling out your oath, make sure that instead of putting a check mark in the blank, you're putting initials. We're not going to do anything in the bottom box yet. If you already have, that's okay. We'll just redate it. That's for after testing. The county district number is on the board over there. And then our telephone number is 326-2600. I'll get those. We'll get those from you when you leave. And my apologies in advance. This is the district's PowerPoint. They're very thorough. So
It's a national.
I'm going to try to. There's a lot of repeats in here though. So
I'm not sure. Are you sure?
I'll get you through. Okay, so this training covers TELPAS, which we've already started, and STAR All, which I don't think anybody in here does. It covers STAR, STAR L, and then our new STAR A that we're starting this year. And first, TEA put together their 14-point security plan. Every rule basically that we have to follow is because somebody messed up royally somewhere. So this is where the active monitoring comes in. It's where the honor statements that the kids have to do, the seating charts. The people who continue to mess up are going to get a super fun visit from TEA during testing, and all of the reporting and document retention. The web-based modules, those of you who did them last year, you're in luck. You do not have to do them this year. Anybody who is new and has never done them before will need to do them. So you'll need to see Miss McLeod before you leave so she can get those to you. But I'm looking out here and I'm thinking maybe only one or two of you are going to have to do that. Okay. We talked about the oath. Anybody who does testing has to do an oath, including office staff, because some fun secretaries took some tests home one year and showed them to their third grade kids, so now the office staff gets to go through test security as well.
Miss Bishop.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is a list of everything that we have to keep on file on campus for 5 years. You guys don't have to worry about this, but this is why we're constantly asking you for oaths and your training documents and your seating charts. Those are all things that we have to keep. If we ever get audited and you don't have that, you're going to be in big old trouble. And I will say, having a seating chart that had a test booklet number on it from the summer really paid off for one of our kiddos who, I guess, something happened with her answer document, and had we not had that, she would have had to be taking her test again as a senior. Okay, so test security is pretty obvious. We've all been through this. I mean, we have to keep the test and the contents of the test secure at all times. So that means when you pick your stuff up in the morning, you can't go and just drop them off in your room and leave. They either have to be on your person, or not like the Grey's Anatomy person, yourself, or it needs to be locked up if you're not going to be in the room. We are going to try to get 2 people per room during testing. With that said, that means probably 60 teachers, and you only get 5 subs, so we'll talk about that later. But this really helps with when something happens, somebody can stay and somebody can go. It also helps with turning in materials, checking out materials. It's just better all around for us as a campus to have 2 test administrators per room. If we pair you with a teaching assistant or one of our substitute teachers, you just have to know that they cannot be left by themselves in the room. A person with a certificate has to be in the room at all times because they like you to have the certificate so they can take it away. Okay, and that's a repeat. Got that. Okay, of course, security. This is why we have y'all count before you check out. We count when we check back in, and then you do your active monitoring and everything to make sure that everything's accounted for at all times. And got this. Confidentiality means that you're not memorizing the test questions and going home and telling everybody. Okay, we can't copy any of the test materials anymore. The breaking the test seals, really, that was for TAX. Remember how TAX had the sections all in one book? With STAR, we don't really have that problem anymore. So, and then, of course, there's administering the test exactly as it says in the manual. We do not have the manuals in yet. As soon as we get them, they will be in your boxes so that you can start going through them and knowing habits. But it is important, especially with how all the new testing has come through. The test directions are quite a bit different than they used to be with TAX, and sometimes they can be confusing. And so I would say, at the very least, if you read through the test directions before your test administration, that will help you tremendously. We can't look at any of the questions. We can't answer them. We can't look at student responses, instruct them to change their responses. No M&Ms, no Skittles, none of that business. There are actually 3 individuals from El Paso in jail right now for instructing students to not attend the test. Yes, not only is some of this stuff you can lose your license for, it's a Class C misdemeanor. So I think, what did we say, 5 years? One of them got 5 years. And Mr. Gray so graciously pointed out, can you imagine sitting in your cell and your cellmate saying, what are you in for? You have to say, I'm road test security. Yes. And one of the guys wasn't even in on it. He just knew about it and didn't report it. Yeah, they're serious. They do want you to read the test instructions exactly as they're written. We can't elaborate, rephrase, can't add things or take away. In fact, doing so is considered a testing irregular. And you're not allowed to translate. You can't erase stray marks for kids. You can't talk about test questions. You can't do anything that would suggest, you can't walk by a kid and be,
Yes, she has started.
Okay, so no suggesting. We know this stuff. If they turn in their answer document and you see all sorts of stray marks, you can instruct them to erase at that time. If anything should happen, you're responsible for reporting. Mr. Cloud. There's that. Oh, there you go. Pretty serious about that. Okay. We will get your rosters, your testing rosters, out to you early. If you think anything looks wrong on there, that's when, the reason we get it out to you early is so that you can look at it and help us catch anything that's wrong. At this point with STAR, everybody who's in the building except for one person, one student, is STAR test taker. So that's a lot for us to manage. And they like to keep changing the rules on us, and we're just doing our very best. So really, if you see anything that's wrong, please let us know. And this also goes for if you are, which we don't have this anymore, but if you're giving a test that has to be read to somebody or it's very obviously a special ed accommodated test, and you see a kid on there that you don't think should be doing that, let us know. Or if that kid comes up to you and says, hey, I'm in pre-AP, I don't think I should be doing this. We would rather you send them to us and us check and us be right and send them back than for us to be wrong. Because we were wrong last year and that was not a good thing for our campus. Of course, that's what I just said. Okay, so during the test administration, you're responsible for making sure they get the correct test booklet and answer document. And where that gets tricky on a campus like ours is that we do testing by alphabet. And we have students with the same first and last name, like Antonio Hernandez and, we have Michael Jones. So really look at that middle initial. Make sure it's correct, have the students check, tell them to check their student ID, make sure that's correct. I know a couple years ago I had 2 sweet teals with the same middle initial, and the only thing that told them apart was their student ID. So you can have them check and help you out, because I know there's a lot of times that you don't exactly know personally all your kids that you're giving a test to. Actively monitoring, and the purpose of actively monitoring is just making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Nobody's sleeping, nobody's on their phone, just things like that. It's not you being a soldier, going up and down every aisle. It's within reason. We can't give assistance, we can't look at the test, we can't discuss what kids answered on the test, and we can't just make sure that they're using their strategies. All tests except for English 1 and 2 have the 4 hours. English 1 and 2 have 5 hours. They will only have 1 essay on each of those this year, so that would be nice. And I foresee that dropping down to 4 hours as well. But for now, we still same thing: 5 hours for English, 4 hours for the other tests. We have to make sure that they know how much time they have left. We announce it every hour, write it on the board. When it gets down to that last hour, start announcing it more frequently. Remind them to be putting their answers on their answer documents. Some of these kids were trained from 3rd grade to answer in the book first, answer on the answer document last, which is still fine, but they need to know that their bubbling on the answer document is included in the 4 hours. And I feel like our kids, they've been doing STAR testing times for a while, so we're getting better, but that's still something that we run into probably 1 or 2 kids every year. Time starts right after you finish reading the directions, and we have to record those times on the seating charts. Breaks that we don't stop the clock for are their water breaks, their bathroom breaks, the little short breaks that sometimes they take. The ones that we do stop the clock for are if they're at the nurse for an extended period of time, then you can stop their time. And if you're ever not sure, just either send one of you or hang out your sign and we'll come and help you make that decision, whether it needs to be a stop or not. We run into the alternate start and stop time when kids come late, and they do. I liked how we handled that last time. We had somebody sitting out in the hall who would read them their directions and they'd send them into you. And that's great. That worked perfectly for us. But they have a different start time. So when you announce to the class or you write the time on the board, make sure you go over to that person and say that you have this amount of time. They're really serious about you not looking at the test and not grading the test and not discussing the test. And of course, accounting for all your materials. These are all things that are serious. They're considered very serious. I guess they call them irregularities, and you'll get a referral to SBEC. Changing response, providing or suggesting a response, aiding. I identifying wrong, solving things for them,
Yes, miss.
copying, viewing, and disclosing.
Sorry.
Failing to report, like that guy we were talking about earlier, fraudulently exempting or preventing a student from taking the test, or not from the school, not a good idea. Encouraging or assisting somebody else.
Okay, do y'all want to start with PSAT or do the TSI stuff that I've got too?
Let's do PSAT.
PSAT? Okay, so I'm just giving y'all the very abbreviated version. And honestly, with all of the new changes and everything, I think the whole staff is going to get a very abbreviated version because I don't really even know a whole lot. As of this morning, we have 56 freshmen signed up. I have ordered 60, so I may really be ordering some tomorrow, Brandy. But we'll see. I did not expect that many. St. Andrews is coming. Their 8th graders want to come, and I asked Tracy to make sure that was okay, and she said yes. So their 8th graders are coming as well. We have 533 sophomores, and I sent y'all an email with their names yesterday because the PSAT 10 and then the juniors PSAT is together. I get to count them together and they're not separate, and so that saved us from having to test our basic kids like I thought we were going to have to at our last staffing. So I took out all basic and I took out all ACC. Also, remember on this one, Tracy, I think, just ran a list of current 10th graders. So that means 10 Rs will be taking this test for free, and 9 Rs will not be. If they want to take it, they will have to pay. So just something to know as kids come in. And then we've got 72 juniors. Now, I checked that at 8. Actually, I checked it at 7:30. And I know it's already changed since then.
Do you need more juniors?
Well, it might be nice for the number 2 person to sign up. She's mine, so I'm going to have to send for her.
I've got 2 more I was going to send for if you want me to today.
I've got 710 PSAT and MSQT.
It's in your folder.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I've got 710, so yes, I mean, I have some room for some kids to sign up.
Okay.
If they want to. I have a girl who's working on NHS hours coming during 6th period to do labels on study guides. Because I did the online sign up for the juniors and freshmen, it was really easy to do labels, and I had them sign up with their English teacher's name, so that gives us a class to deliver them to. So I went through and did that for sophomores yesterday, and she's working on that, so they'll all get a study guide. And it kind of freaked us out a little bit yesterday because she found just one of these laying in the box, but it goes inside here. So they get a full-length PSAT test to study with, as well as some practice questions in here. So that's what they're getting in their study guide, and I'm hoping to get those out at the beginning of next week. As far as fee waivers go, we do have fee waivers, but I can only use them for juniors. And it was something that I had to pre-order, and they don't give you very many. You have to beg for what you get. Last year they only wanted to give me 10, which was not feasible, and I asked for a lot more, so they gave me 20 total.
Yeah, he talked about that at our training and said that it's based on what you used the year before.
Yeah. Well, and last year was the first year we did it like that. I mean, I don't think we'd ever even considered fee waivers before then, so that's why they were real stingy with giving me any. And then, so then I had to be stingy with who they went to last year. I think I just looked at who's on free lunch and went with those kids. But that's pretty much how they qualify for a fee waiver, is being on free and reduced lunch. If they're in the children's home, we can help them out. Foster homes, things like that. They did redesign the PSAT and the SAT. In fact, I think I read somewhere that the last date for them to take the old SAT in January.
We have a new instruction language.
Yes, yeah, it's on this page. I kind of threw it in at the back. The stripy page on the back. It has your key dates for when those new administrations are going to start. Anyway, so since they redid the SAT, they kind of redid the whole thing. So now that's why we have, really it's 3 separate PSATs, but for our administration in the fall, it ends up being 2. Because as I was saying earlier, the PSAT 10 kind of falls in with the junior level PSAT for the national merit. The main differences that I could see as I was flipping through my little book is that there's less questions on the 9th graders PSAT, but they still get the same amount of time. And it's made to prepare them as it should. I mean, as it should follow. It's made to prepare them for the PSA 10 and then the actual national merit PSAT. I did put a handout that I got from my book in here that tells about the PSAT 8, 9 and kind of what all's on it. And I'm giving you guys these because I know that you get parent phone calls too. So I know it helps to have a little bit of information. And then the PSAT 10 and the national merit one is right behind it. And it, of course, is made to prepare them for the actual SAT. As far as in the past, they got access to that My College Quick Start, and that's what ran all of the diagnostics and where they are and what questions they should work on and free practice SAT tests. But now they're doing all of that through Khan Academy, that KHAN Academy that we heard about at the beginning of the year. So that's what they'll have access to instead of the My College Quick Start, which to me, that is the greatest benefit of taking these tests is you get all that free. I mean, it's not free, they're paying $15, but you get all of that SAT prep that could cost you hundreds of dollars. I mean, just even the books cost $50 to $100. I also gave you a chart that shows how the tests are broken down. It's the one that says preparing for testing in your packet, and it shows the things that are going to be on the test and then the level that those will be at for each test. So for example, on the reading portion for graphics, on the 9th grade test, they have to determine the explicit meaning. On the 10th grade, they're recognizing trends, and then on SAT, they're synthesizing information. So it just kind of grows as they grow. As far as the scoring goes, the scoring is going to be very different. They're trying to make it closer to what an SAT score would be, which to me is a little bit easier for them to determine, you know, if this were an SAT, this is where I would fall. And I gave you a chart that shows that. I do not know, and I have not heard yet, how that's going to affect TSI cut scores for our sophomores that are taking it. You know, they can qualify for a waiver based on their PSAT scores for TSI, but obviously they're going to have to rewrite what those scores are because it's not going to be the same. And then I gave you an example of what they're going to receive. And I have one here too somewhere. Maybe not. This is what their score sheet will look like, and so they get to see it all broken down where they fit. The back will show them if it's possible that there'll be a national merit qualifier. And then it shows them what questions they missed and what the right answer was and what kind of question that was. And Emily, they will get their actual test books back also.
Okay.
So that they can go back and revisit those questions. I don't think a lot of them do that, but they have that available if they want to. Yes. As far as testing day duties, Allison is working on all the displacements and the room and proctor assignments. And it was kind of hard for her to get started on that because the signups are not finished yet. After today was the last day to sign up, so I will probably take the link down. If you have any more, just email me and I'll see if we still have some available. Because like if they're a junior, I still have some. And if I order more ninth, then we may have some of those too. So if we have some stragglers, just email me and I'll see if we still have tests to give. So I'm thinking what counselor duties are going to be is to help get the kids to their classes in the morning. Because 9Rs aren't also taking this test for free, it makes it a little more difficult as far as my entire class but me is testing, so where do I go? This is that test that's really hard to displace classes and figure out where everybody's going to go. We will have the board out there with a list of where each kid is to report, and we'll also have where they're to go if they're not testing. We'll be giving breaks and then helping to check the materials back in, just like regular testing duties. It's not really anything different. If we have enough administrators' manuals, I'll make sure y'all get one, because we will be going into the classrooms so that we will have them. If not, then whoever you give a break to is to leave theirs open. Make sure you find out where they were and how much time is left, because the sections are timed. Let's see, as far as the rooms go, this is nothing we have to do, but what you expect when you walk in there is to either you'll see a visible clock, they're supposed to post the time on the board, and it's star style. I mean, they're putting, once you have 5 minutes left, you have 5 minutes remaining, both out loud and on the board. The students have to be facing forward, which presents another difficulty, because that means we can't use like the labs and things for this test. And they're supposed to, as far as I know, and I haven't found anything saying otherwise yet, they're supposed to be seated alphabetically. And I'll keep looking because I know that they changed that for the AP tests, so I'll make sure that that's what we're still supposed to do for this. The other fun stuff that always presents as a problem on test day is I believe they still have to write the honor statements and they have to write them in cursive, which is fun. And then they're supposed to know their social security numbers, but they're not going to. And so I know on the sophomore list that I did yesterday, I've already got their socials on, and I'll work to get that on the juniors and freshmen. So when the teachers get their class rosters, they'll have access to those. We just need to be careful because they'll have PINS numbers on there, so we cannot lose them. So it's probably going to have to be something that we check back in when that time comes. But like I said, I gave y'all pretty much everything that I thought was important that might help you when you get parent phone calls. Susan, one thing that I found interesting is that this test is connected to the Cook Foundation.
We'll talk more about that.
Yeah. And anyways, do y'all have any questions on PSAT?
I think so.
Okay, it's pretty straightforward. Look at directions. But, I mean, the only big deal this year, oh, there's that. This is their school report. The only big difference is that we've got that PSAT 9, so we have to make sure not to mix it up. Okay, so that's PSAT. Yesterday, and I was looking really hard to find every reason to not give the English 3 and Algebra 2 POCs, I stumbled upon kind of a treasure trove of TSI stuff that teachers and students and parents have been asking for, and we've never really had. One thing that I thought would be beneficial for us all to have is just this, it's a straightforward list of what the passing standards are on TSI. One thing that I found interesting is if you'll look on writing, if, you know, in the past, we said if they made a 5 or higher, they were good. It's on the other side, it was on the other side of your folder. If not, I've got,
Okay.
do you find it?
No, I'll look on that one.
Okay. In the past, we've said if they score a 5 or higher on the essay, then they're passing, but that's not necessarily true. It looks like we need to make sure they're getting a placement score or a multiple choice score of 350. And if it's less than 350, then that ABE diagnostic level that we see sometimes has to be at least a 4, which most of our kids end up with a 6 on that. So I'll go back through and check, and that'll be fun, and make sure that the kids we told passed writing really passed writing. Because we've always been told if they score a 5 or higher, they're good. It doesn't matter what the multiple choice is. Well, apparently it does.
So when was this prepared, do we know?
And
When
who
was this
prepared it?
prepared? This is from the Higher Education Board.
And is it recent or?
It's
is it-
recent, yeah. Yeah, like March maybe, but then I just
Should have a
never,
date on it.
yeah. And then if you'll look, this is what I've been talking about before. Our freshmen that come in, let's see, it's not gonna be, is that next year or the following year? Current 7th graders?
Yes,
Current 7th graders, those passing standards change a little bit. So, yeah. And then the other thing I found interesting on this one is at the bottom, it talks about that developmental education, you know, when they don't pass, we're supposed to be really looking at where they are before we determine what sort of intervention they're getting. If they're bombing, the college prep class may not be appropriate for
I
them.
think that's all the AC will let us do though. I mean, it
Yeah.
has to be what is it called? The higher,
Right, but I
education.
find it interesting because AC has standards like this for their tutoring and intervention.
weren't they
Like
getting
if
rid of
they-
some of the lower ones though and only doing the one right before?
Yes,
So that's all they have for us to do.
yes. So I don't know, I mean, I don't know how that really affects us, but I found that interesting.
But AC also has programs for kids where they don't have to pass TSI.
Right.
So that may be,
Right,
if they're scoring in those lower levels, they're
Mhm.
recommending they go into one of those other programs
Right.
instead of like an associate's degree program.
right. The next thing that's in there, with this little girl's picture on it, it's just a student information brochure. It tells about what the TSI is, if they have to take it, how it works. There's a section on students with disabilities. It also talks about the pre-assessment, and then my favorite part is that it covers in depth what all's on the test. They're always asking that, and I don't know. I mean, it's hard to tell them what's on there. It talks to them about, specifically about the writing and what they need to do in order to pass that. And then it talks about preparation and retaking. These last few stapled pages that I'm gonna go through, I think I'm gonna give to Truetta to make copies and keep in the College and Career Center. And then that way the kids have somewhere to go to get more information. The next one is just, again, a breakdown of what all's on the test. And this would probably be good. I sent this also to the learning leaders. This would be good for those teachers to have.
I asked the learning leaders yesterday, if they had taken the TSI. You know, we got to take it in our training 2 years ago, and I think that they were supposed to take it and something happened and they didn't. But I think that would be good for the whole department doing
Yes.
PLC one day, to
To
just
take
see
it.
what all's on it and how it compares to what they're teaching in class.
Yeah. And the next one, this is a practice, I mean, it's got practice questions for the TSI. So I thought that would be good, and it has the answers at the back. But I thought that would be good, just preparing them. I mean, maybe that's something, I don't know if or when they'll ever decide when we're giving this, other than the spring, but maybe this is something that the teachers give in December, just so kids can kind of see where they are and what they need to work on.
Rebecca had an idea this morning about, during English 1 and 2, I think, that the STAR test, that it's gonna be a day where the rest of the kids aren't on campus. And she wondered if we could not test in any of the computer labs and do some TSI testing those days, because we have plenty of personnel, and it's mostly the younger kids on campus, and keeping the
Right.
juniors in to take
But-
TSI.
The only thing you run into with that, though, is you have all of the online STAR testing. I mean, in December we won't, because we're doing the switch over,
But you will in the spring.
but we will in the spring.
How many
yeah,
labs
all-
are usually occupied by that? Just the library?
No, because we typically do L's and makeups in the library, and then we have those alts in another lab, and you have to be careful, not alts, I'm sorry, the A's. And you have to be careful with those, because some of those kids have individual,
But we could use all the
Assessment
CPE labs, right?
Yeah,
Because those
we could.
teachers won't have kids.
we could,
I think we
if
could knock
they're
out a
not,
lot of them.
if they're not being used, that's the thing.
But
'Cause
we
if
could
they
say
have,
that they're not and reserve them for this because,
but if they have to have a small group or an individual test, then we can't say, I have to have this for TSI. You can come in.
but if all the kids are off campus and are the only kids on campus that day are boosters,
Right,
wouldn't those labs be
maybe,
likely to be available?
maybe not. It depends on what the art says that the kids have to have. Like if we don't have any small group or any, and really small groups out the window, if we don't have any individual, then yeah, that's a great possibility. But if we do, then it's not a good possibility. But yeah, I mean, I like that idea.
We might look into that. And even if we just got one or, just math done, or
Right,
just,
right.
Just something.
something. Yes,
Yeah,
just
something.
knock out a group of it, and that would be a quiet, calm day without a lot of in and out. You have plenty of personnel,
They're not
plenty of,
missing.
they're not being pulled from
Instruction,
class
yeah.
and stressed about what they're missing, and
And the last one is, these are sample essays for TSI and how, they did an example of, like starting on page 3, this essay got a score of 1. And then they go through all of them up through however high they go, up to a score of 8. And it's just it gives them a good idea of what they need to do to get that essay. Yeah, so Lindsay, what I was telling them is I think what I'm gonna do with these packets, the TSI packets, is give Truetta the originals and make some copies to keep in the College and Career Center. So when kids come in and say, I need some TSI prep, she's got it.
I almost wonder if this isn't something that we need to give to
English
all the
teachers.
junior
I
English
s-
teachers
I
and
sent
math
it.
teachers or something.
Yeah.
Because we've gotta get our TSI scores up.
Yeah, I sent, yesterday when I found the website, I sent Fluman and Thompson and Cranmer
Mhm.
the
And where did
links
you get this again?
from the Higher Education Board
Okay.
website. And I can send that to you
Oh,
if
is
you
this
want
like
me
the
to.
where you
Is it
look
a
up how
link?
much it's gonna be?
Yes,
Yeah, that
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
link and there's a lot of links to click on from there. That's where I got all of this.
Yeah, can you send that to us?
Sure. And that's all I have. Do you have any questions on TSI?
No, that's good.
I led the STAR training faculty meeting both as a leader and as an example to the new staff member that I was mentoring. I had the privilege of mentoring our testing coordinator for our campus, and so I was trying to show her both how to lead those meetings and kind of what the faculty has come to expect from those meetings. I led the PSAT training meeting as an expert of sorts from my counseling staff, and the same goes with the TSI informational meeting. The most difficult thing about leading a faculty meeting is that you are in front of your peers. And they say, and I would agree, that it's more difficult to be in front of your peers than it is in front of a group of students. Testing faculty meetings are even more difficult because you're in charge of getting out a lot of very important and potentially career-threatening material. But at the same time, you take that and compound it with the fact that that material tends to be very dry and repetitive. Then it makes for a not very fun meeting. And the faculty coming into that meeting know that it's not going to be a very fun meeting, and it's not really my style to not have a fun meeting, and so it makes it hard, even more difficult to lead those. The PSAT training and the TSI informational meeting that I did is difficult because as part of the counseling staff, we're all a little bit expert in each of those areas, but each of us kind of has our own area in which we're expected to be the main expert on campus. And so it's difficult to make sure that you're giving information that they haven't heard before and that'll be helpful for them whenever parents call or kids have questions. It's very important to stay on point and to not waste anyone's time always, at the same time as making sure that everyone is hearing and understanding the rules and regulations that are being presented. There's a great deal of preparation that goes into these meetings. I wish that it just came down to just standing up and presenting, but it really doesn't. Oftentimes we have to attend trainings in order to learn the material and make sure we're presenting the correct material and that it is the most up-to-date. And so we often are sending trainings in order to train others. The STAR testing meetings make me very nervous because there's so much on the line. I am in charge of making sure that the staff knows what they're supposed to do. And they're going to have questions the day of testing, and I know that, but it's my job to make sure that they understand most of what they're supposed to do, and especially the things that they're not supposed to do. I do feel a great deal more confident now that I know more and I've been doing this for longer. I've learned how to give out that dry and repetitive information at the same time as having a little bit of humor at the same time. I think that is an important quality for leaders to have. Is to be able to have humor, especially in those dry and often boring presentations that we are in charge of. It feels good to be the expert on campus when it comes to this sort of thing, as far as STAR and PSAT and TSI and TELPAS and all things testing. But it can be overwhelming to be the only point person on campus. And I'm also learning that the more years that I get under my belt with these things, not only am I the point person on campus, is that I'm also starting to get questions and phone calls and emails from other personnel in the district. The only bad part of leading these faculty meetings is that you get this overwhelming anxiety about wasting people's time. You don't want to waste their time. You don't want them to be bored. You want them to be learning and listening and understanding all of the material. And so I would say if I had to choose one thing, the most overwhelming thing is making sure I'm making good use of their time. And then a sort of keeping them entertained and keeping their attention. Luckily, my staff is very receptive. They were pleased with the way that I ran both of the meetings. I kept information to the point with a little bit of entertaining. Like I said, it's not my style to just give out the information. I like to include a little bit of humor and a little bit of things that kind of keep their attention. I have found, though, that there is a fine line between too much entertaining and making sure I'm not wasting their time. So I have to be very careful. In closing, I do still find myself getting anxiety over these meetings, but I'm finding that with time and experience, I'm getting better. I'm learning how to lead with style, but to also deliver the information they need in order to be successful with our students. In the future, I will continue to work to make these meetings timely, effective, and encouraging.